Caucasian or migrant status, or for any other reason. Unfortunately, however, discrimination continues to undermine efforts to achieve a more equitable world. People face discrimination every day based on who they are or what they do. Access to health services is essential to prevent and treat HIV. According to the UN-AIDS, however, approximately 1 in 5 people living with HIV reported avoiding going to a local hospital because they feared stigma or discrimination related to their HIV status. This edition of the program takes a look at how much effort is Nigeria making towards achieving zero HIV discrimination. Some people believe that because herbal medicines derive from natural products, that they are not drugs. But they are and even have the potential to cause harm depending on usage. We'll give you more insight into this on our Nature Scanner. Heart attack, said to be on the increase amongst men and women, could be triggered by factors which include excitement, anger, and certain health conditions. Join us on our Health Tips segment on knowing the symptoms of heart attack and precautions you can take to lower your risk. Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Rabi Abdallah. This is Health Options, and our Policy Track segment is taking a look at Nigeria's efforts at HIV zero discrimination. Before getting down to the discussion, let's take this life-sharing experience of Gloria Ogodo, a lady living with HIV.
In terms of tertiary institution, when I tried getting admission into the school, that was 2008, and at that point, the admission quite sure was given to me. So it seems as if that section, they didn't carry the medical test because they call it medical fitness. They won't tell you exactly the medical fitness they are carrying out. So at that point, they say, no, we students that have admission that period, that they should come and do the medical fitness. So at that point, that was how they collected our sample and every other thing right there in the school. So they carry out the medical test. They called me from the school and said, there is the VC himself, and said, we are sorry, our student life is at stake. They are withdrawing the admission from me. At that point, I feel as if I should die. At that point, I feel hopeless. I was not thinking that, is it because I'm HIV positive, meaning that I don't have right to education? So it was at that point I became so mad that no, I must do something. If 1,001 adolescents out there cannot speak, I need to speak for them. The one I later got was, they gave me a test to carry it out. I fear again. So it was at this point, I came back to Abuja. I said, no, I must not keep quiet. HIV positive person is not written on the forehead. I might be HIV positive person standing at zone 4, standing on the road and be spreading the virus, because at that time, young people like us never want to disclose their status because they'll feel like they got it from men. They would like to distribute it back to them. So I came back and I said, which organization will I fit in so that I can be able to function very well? That is when I met NGO. They call it Education as a Vaccine Ever. Compared then and now, there is a lot of changes. Why I say there is a lot of changes is this. One, there is antiretroviral drugs that is free. Then we bought it with money. In government price then is 50,000 naira. Yes, the discrimination now coming to them is quite better, because in my family, my own parents cannot take decision without me being present. And again, I'm a breadwinner of the house. And it was at that I have to force. I am in the forefront of the Anti-Discrimination Act that was passed into law in 2014 due to my story, because they have to call the school and find out if actually this thing still exists. The man said yes, up to tomorrow that is still existing. With this discrimination, there is a lot of gaps, because people that were stigmatizing me then, if they see me today, because they wanted me to die long time ago, but I refused to die. And seeing me today, they say, Gloria, how much are they paying you? They have paid you to go and be telling people that you are positive. Why are you lying? Why are you deceiving people? The T-shirt that I was wearing, that they will write all manner of HIV things on the T-shirt, then they don't want to wear it. But this time, once they see anything on my body in terms of T-shirt, they say, Gloria, give me your T-shirt. Gloria, Gloria. So it's become that I'm now the voice to the voiceless. Yes, I broke the yoke. Not just even that. Compared to that, my working today in National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, it was at Abuja AU Summit, Abuja Plus 12.
Gloria Ogododa sharing her experience on discrimination against persons living with HIV. Joining me now to take us through Nigeria's efforts at changing the narrative is the Director General of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, Dr. Sadi Aliyu. Welcome to Health Options, Dr. Aliyu.
Thank you for having me, Rabi.
All right, so we're fucking zero tolerance to discrimination, and in particular, against persons living with HIV. And if you look at the concept of humanity, the concept of a just and equitable society, it says that no human being, regardless of your status or identity, should be discriminated upon. Take us through this concept, as it affects people, persons living with HIV.
So you're very right, Rabi. There is no reason why people living with HIV should be treated any differently to those that do not have HIV. People living with HIV have a right to dignity. People living with HIV have a right to employment, to a family life, etc. Sadly, in this country, we continue to have issues of stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV. We passed an act, the country passed an act in 2014, which was the Anti-Discrimination Act, which was really specific against discrimination as it relates to people living with HIV. So, for instance, you're no longer allowed to do a HIV test before you employ somebody. If somebody is HIV positive and declares his or her status, you don't have a right to say, well, I'm not going to employ this person. And when you look at it from the perspective of our culture and our religion and our beliefs as well, it is clearly wrong. People living with HIV have a virus. They have a virus in their bloodstream. Virtually most of the people I know didn't choose to have that virus in their bloodstream. HIV is not even the most infectious or transmissible of diseases. People living with HIV, a lot of them are already on treatment. Even with very close contacts, like sexual contact, for instance, if they are on treatment, they are not going to transmit the virus. So why should they be treated any differently? We've had situations where children from who have got HIV from mothers that are infected, for instance, are being denied an education. Schools saying that they will not take them. Why?
Does that still exist?
Oh, yes.
I know that probably existed before that enactment.
It still exists. A young lady called Tobori, a young journalist, did a recent report in the last few months in Lagos and other parts of the country that clearly showed that schools were denying access to education for these children just because they have HIV. At the moment, we have a court case that we've recently won on a gentleman who was refused employment because he was HIV positive. And we helped him to take the case to court. He's won the case, and we are now looking at enforcing the judgment, because you can actually get as much as 5 million naira compensation. And it's a criminal act. Employers can actually go to jail for doing it.
Okay, but don't you have a forum where you bring maybe key players together, like employers of labor, owners of schools, both government and private owned ones? Don't you have a meeting point where you let them know the implication of all this, especially with the enactment of the bill?
So you're very right again. So the problem with the bill really has to do with two things. One, people are not aware it exists. And then two, the issue of enforcement, because you may draft the best bill ever, an act that is perfect, but if you do not have an implementation side or an enforcement side, then it's not going to work. We have been working very closely with a coalition of lawyers to try and push this issue forward. We also have had interfacing with employers through their consultative associations, assemblies, people are now starting to realize that it is not acceptable. It is not acceptable just because somebody has HIV that they cannot access healthcare, or they cannot access employment, or any other services provided by government. HIV is a virus just like any other virus. If you have hepatitis, people with hepatitis, they're not being discriminated against. No. Have you ever heard of people being tested for hepatitis before they are employed?
No.
Well, what about cancers?
Exactly.
Cancer will kill you faster than any HIV infection can kill you. Are they being treated any differently? Nowadays, with HIV treatment available, if you meet somebody with HIV on the streets, you'll not even recognize them if they are taking their drugs.
Because the interventions are there.
The interventions are there, but more importantly, they are human beings. They are human beings. They never really chose to have HIV.
And it could be anyone, eh?
It could be anyone
it could
today.
Be me, it could be you.
And that's the beauty of the anti-discrimination bill, because essentially it's trying to provide a level playing field. And we're not just talking about HIV. It also applies to other infectious diseases such as tuberculosis, etc.
Considering our burden as a country, do you think such, I'm sure that has a negative impact on our progress as a people?
Oh, it does. So there are people that clearly don't want to have a HIV test done. But the commonest reason why is because they are afraid of the stigma and discrimination. Maybe their families will treat them differently. Maybe their friends will treat them differently. Maybe people will run away from them. I've had questions being asked for families that have had, let's say, somebody tests positive. Maybe it's somebody who's working for them, a cleaner, etc. And then they are asking, well, do they need different utensils for feeding, etc.? What do they need to do? Should they stop the person from looking after their children? And my answer is no. HIV is not that infectious. Actually, if you don't want to catch HIV, you will never catch it.
Does that boil down to the fact that enough awareness is not being created?
So that's
because I'm surprised to hear people still asking such questions at this age and time.
Oh yes, we have done a lot of work when it comes to awareness. But the fact is, in the past, HIV was killing people.
Yes.
If you see somebody with advanced HIV disease, they are wasted. They have rashes on their face. They look very sick. So people are frightened. And therefore, they tend to go and find out.
That picture has changed.
That picture has changed, and it's a good thing that it has changed.
So shouldn't that even reduce discrimination and stigma?
In actual fact, it doesn't. And even the ways, sometimes there's also the structural issue in terms of how our programs themselves are run. If you go to the hospitals, hospitals still have HIV facilities where clinics are being run in a different building, for instance. It may look very nice, etc. But if you go to that building for a clinic, a HIV clinic, everybody knows it's a HIV clinic, and you might as well be carrying HIV on your forehead. Or they have facilities like, let's say, pharmacies within the hospital that only serve HIV patients. So if you go there to collect a drug, you might as well be carrying HIV on your forehead. And that's why, in addition to tackling stigma and discrimination, we need to remove the vertical structures that make discrimination easier, that make identification easier. People should have the confidence to say, I'm going for a HIV test. Whether I test positive or negative, that result stays with me or with my healthcare provider.
What should be the right attitude to people living with HIV?
So people living with HIV are entitled to employment. They are entitled to a proper life, just like any of us, education, marriage, etc. They should not be discriminated against. HIV testing is not for the purpose of either identifying whether somebody should be married or not, or whether somebody should be employed or not. HIV testing should primarily benefit the person being tested.
Are you saying it's wrong for religious bodies that really prioritize that would-be couple need to take HIV test?
So it needs to be voluntary. It shouldn't be mandatory.
Okay.
And secondly, as you know, Rabi, nowadays, if a person is on HIV treatment and virologically suppressed, they will not transmit the virus. Yeah. So provided the other partner knows this person is HIV positive, they are virologically suppressed, it's not a problem. It shouldn't stop marriages. What it should do really is to identify a partner that may need treatment. And provided they go on treatment and they are virologically suppressed, it's not an issue. It becomes a decision between the two of them. But what we find disagreeable is to make it mandatory. because there is now an intervention that makes transmission, that makes it possible to interrupt transmission altogether. But more importantly, for children that have HIV, they are entitled to an education as well. Remember, nobody chose to be HIV positive, and people shouldn't be treated any differently to the rest of the community.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sani Ali. Options.
Thank you,
Rabi. So much.
Thank you.
This is the point we take you to our nature scanner, and our focus is on issues revolving around the safety of herbal medicines.
Use of herbal medicines inappropriately from those that are not trained to give you herbal medicines, to apply science, proper science and technology in getting herbal medicines to you, can lead to toxicity of the kidney and lead to kidney failure. It can lead to hepatitis. Hepatitis is disease of the liver. If you consume a lot of these plants unnecessarily and without knowing the amount you should consume and how you should consume, you are subjecting yourself to getting these side effects or toxic effects of these plants. You think you are consuming food that is normal, but no, you are not eating food. You are consuming the plant. So it is important for us to know that while nature has provided all of this to assist us, it is also dangerous not to use them properly. Nobody should think that when you use bitter leaf to cook bitter leaf soup, it is the same as cutting bitter leaf, squeezing it in water and drinking the juice. It's not the same thing. And when you cook some of them, some toxic components of the plants will be destroyed. And so that's why you may not have those problems when you use them as additives in your food. If you drink bitter leaf, you on your own, you are squeezing bitter leaf and drinking. Number one, you don't know how much of the chemical compounds in the bitter leaf that you are drinking. But when you squeeze bitter leaf in your water, you don't know the amount. You might be squeezing more 10 times the amount you should actually drink. Therefore, it can bring down your glucose level suddenly to the level that you go into hypoglycemic shock and die. When you squeeze it, there are other biochemical components in that bitter leaf that can lead to kidney failure. That is why when you cook bitter leaf, you are no longer eating bitter leaf. Actually, you are eating cooked bitter leaf. Cooking itself is a means of detoxifying a lot of products. That's why medicinal plant is different from vegetable. You see, when we do vegetable for their nutritional content, for their electrolyte content, because a lot of people consume these herbal medicines in little quantities over a long period of time, they come down with kidney problems, with heart problems, with liver problems, with neurological problems. Even, in fact, there are some plants that consume over time can make people have Parkinsonism. Vegetables are not herbal medicines. Herbal medicines are not vegetables. When we say this is a medicinal plant, that medicinal plant, that herb, contains very potent biochemical or chemical compounds that are very, very effective and very active in treating or managing specific ailments. And even if you chew them, even if you chew it the way it is enough to kill or to cure. It is advisable not to just go and begin to collect it from your backyard that nature has provided, that in the name of nature has provided a cure. No, nature provided a cure, but nature has also given knowledge to some people to study it and come up with how it should be used. Vegetables, there are known vegetables that we all know that these are not, even if they have medicinal properties, they don't contain potent active chemical compounds. They may just be vegetables that have antioxidant property. Those can be eaten raw, so you don't have issues. You don't have issues with cabbage. You don't have issues with carrot. You don't have issues with lettuce. You don't have issues with berries and all of that. Yes, and cucumber and all of that. We know even from history. There are categories of vegetables that from history, because history is also important in herbal medicine. In fact, in China, they call it traditional Chinese medicine. In our own environment, it's African traditional medicine. Before we started doing science, traditionally, our people know vegetables that you have to wash them very well and throw away the juice. There is a reason, even though our ancestors may not know the scientific reasons for those things they did, but there are scientific reasons why those juice, which a lot of people are trying to drink today, were thrown away in those days. Yes, bitter leaf is an example. We're thrown away in these days. Not today that people are drinking everything and squeezing everything today and drinking, thinking that there are no side effects. There are actually toxic effects of these things. Moringa. In fact, there are studies to show that people who consume a lot of moringa without medical advice have given birth to children with deformities. I mean, there are studies like that, and for so many of our plants that are available in our environment. What is the message actually? The most important message that I'm passing on this is that only people who are knowledgeable in herbal medicines should actually give you herbal medicines.
Here is hoping that what you have learned from our Nature's Corner will bring about behavioral change in you regarding herbal medicines consumption. Time now to take our health tips on knowing the symptoms of heart attack and precaution you can take to lower your risk.
The function of the heart is taking the oxygen to various parts of the organs, that is to the brain, to the liver, to the kidneys, to the lungs, and that is the main reason why the heart is considered as a vital organ. If the heart is stop malfunction, that is a takeaway. It will not supply the oxygen. It will not supply the blood into all parts of the organs. And then when this has happened, then it's considered as the heart attack. So heart attack, it can happen at any time. Those people with diabetes have a tendency to develop heart attack. Those people with hypertension has a tendency to develop heart attack. Overweight individuals also have a tendency to develop heart attack. Those people who could not sleep very well will have a tendency to have a heart attack. Worriness will also trigger heart attack. Hypertension will also trigger heart attack. So these are the factors responsible for causation of heart attack. The symptoms of heart attack is chest pain, because the heart is situated in the thoracic cavity, that is in the chest. If you have been experiencing such a difficulty in breathing, if you are experiencing chest pain, if you are experiencing that climbing to upstairs, the precaution that you are going to take is that, if you are overweight, if you are hypertensive, if you are diabetic, now we are expected to take aspirin, a junior aspirin. Every time you are expected to take, not for the treatment, but that for preventive purposes. Everybody, genetically, that their parents have some heart problem, they are expected to take a junior aspirin for the rest of their life, one every day, preferably coated. Because, for example, if you have a peptic ulcer, or gastric ulcer, or jejunal ulcer, or you are expected to have a bleeding into the stomach, now coated will stop that bleeding, and you are expected to take coated junior aspirin, 81 milligrams for the rest of your life. Now, exercise is very, very important. Have a warm shower and have a cup of warm milk, then go to bed. You should not take heavy food, before you go to bed. Moderation, excitement, too much excitement. Milder, easier life. Anything, should come, but you have to take it easy. Just avoid anything that will cause anger. Anger will trigger sudden heart attack. Heart attack can last between 1, 2, 3 hours. Then someone will lose his life or her life. Sudden death, that is due to massive heart attack. You have to avoid salty food as much as possible. You have to avoid fatty food as much as possible. You have to avoid sugary food as much as possible. These are life. Concentrate more on vegetables. Concentrate more on fish. These are the kind of things that we are expected to increase our life expectancy. We need to eat just one banana per day. The heart needs potassium. Which food that has potassium? Banana. That will save our life.
Moderation is no doubt the watchword for everything, especially when it comes to the heart. And this is where we wrap up this week's edition of Health Options. You can watch the upload of these and other episodes of the program. Email us for your comments and contributions at healthoptions@nta.gov.ng. My name is Rabi Abdallah. Until we come your way again, keep healthy.